All right, welcome everyone to another week of analysis in this forex market, commodity market, crypto market, indice market. We do all the markets here at Team Let's Eat, and we have the third week of May. We have one more to go after this, and we have a couple pairs to look at. We have Euro CAD, we have Bitcoin, we have gold, we have pound Aussie, pound yen, and US CAD. So both the CAD pairs we're shorting. We already have one position, as you can see on the screen already, on Euro CAD. We're looking to enter US CAD, and we'll get into all that in a minute. But I just wanted to let you guys know about the broker that we all use here at Team Let's Eat. It's Osprey FX. It's a very good broker. They have extremely good customer support, very fast emails, very good deposit and withdrawals with Bitcoin, good leverage. You know, or you can use smaller leverage, but you know it has up to 500 leverage, MT4, MT5, and now they actually have funded accounts, right? So you can choose what account size you would like, and you can complete those challenges. And when you complete the challenges, you actually get a refund back. Pretty much pays you back for completing it, and um, then you can start trading that funded account, and it's actual live money. So a lot of these brokers, or sorry, a lot of these prop firms, they use demo accounts for the funded accounts, and Osprey actually uses real accounts. So they're super legit, super good broker. That's what I use. That's what everyone else uses at Team Let's Eat. So if you are looking for a broker, if you are interested in maybe using a different one, then I would definitely just check out Osprey FX. And with that set aside, let's dive into the markets. And I'm going to start, we're pretty much going to go up the list here. I'm going to start with Bitcoin. I'm just going to touch on that for a second because it's kind of in a position where it's going to be lots of up and down scalps. So there's not really any big swing trades like this huge sell that happens. So it's going to be lots of in and out, in and out, in and out. So we hit this level right here of 26.8 thousand, and we had massive rejection from it, and that caused me to believe that we're going to pull back up to this area right here. If I went to the daily time frame, okay, I believe we're going to pull back into this 33K area. So let me go back into the 2-hour. You know what, let me just go right into the 30 minutes. So when it pushed up here, typically when that happens with Bitcoin, it's not really going to pull back that much. It doesn't have to. It just kind of explodes from there. So we got an entry right here with the first target being this high right here that was hit. Then the stop loss is moved to this level right under this low, as you can see. And then I was simply just waiting for price to pull back, and specifically pull back into this area where it took off from. So as you can see here, how it pushed up and then it pulled back. And if we zoom in, you can see we have 1, 2, 3 candles that push, and then this fourth one that dips back down into this area, and then it completely explodes without retracing. So that tells me this area right here, these few candles, are where all the liquidity is, and that is where I'm going to look to enter a second position to take this to the full target of 33,000, and that's exactly what happened. And now we're just holding that, and going forward, once we hit 33,000, we are going to be looking to short this and possibly come down below this low of 25.3. It all depends on the sort of pressure we get at 33, but without a doubt, once we get above 33, more specifically, I'm actually going to just mark this with a level here. More specifically, I just want to see this level breached and rejected, and from there we're going to, like I said, we're probably going to be taking shorts down at least to 26.8 again if we want to continue this higher, or it's going to break 26.8 and go lower. So that would look like this, right? Or it's going to look like this. right? Either way, we're going to 33 and then we're going to 26. I'm just going to call it 27. Um, and that's pretty much it with Bitcoin. Not a whole lot going on right now. We kind of have a little head and shoulders pattern. If you like those patterns, Bitcoin, honestly, other markets than Bitcoin too, they do this where this shoulder, if you have a very, very fast spike down, it this won't pull all the way back up to the neckline right here. It'll just pull, let me delete that. It'll just pull up slightly, and then this second shoulder is lower than that one. So this is a very, very, very common pattern that I have seen in Bitcoin and other pairs too, but right now it's showing it very perfectly in Bitcoin. Um, so that is pretty much it for Bitcoin. We got 530 pips on the original entry and almost 400 pips on the second entry. So a solid 900 pips collected once this move is complete. And yeah, from there we'll look to take sells. And let's move on to EuroCAD because this one is going to be very, very beautiful. Let me get this chart set up here. So I just wanted to look at the higher time frame first, and then we'll kind of get into what happened up here, why we took the entry, why the stop loss is here, and why we're looking to enter right here. So if we take a look at this daily, we can see price pulled back up to this high and spiked right above it. And on the lower time frame, you'll see in a minute why and when we took the entry. And the target is this swing low down here. As you can see, just this general area. Once it starts getting close to that 1.32 area, we're gonna be looking to take some of that position off and take some profits off the table. But let's take a look at the previous price action. So specifically right here, we got a 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 candles drop, and then we got a pullback, and the pullback goes slightly higher than this fourth candle, right? So you see this fourth candle high right here. It pulls between essentially like kind of just the mid ground of this third candle, but for sure higher than the fourth one. And we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 entry, and then it pushes down. And if you look, we have kind of a similar process or a repeat of price action right here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and this one was a little bit quicker. So this candle shot up immediately in one candle, and it pulled to about the halfway point of this candle right here, and then it started looking like it was going to drop again. However, the market simply was not ready. It wanted to grab more liquidity, grab more orders before that happened. So it ended up just making like a nice little S right here and pushing up to where we entered. So with this, well, that's kind of a weird looking. I don't know why it's squiggly like that. With that sort of flow in mind, that's pretty much what we're going to be looking for here. Is I want to see a pullback above this fourth candle's high, and somewhere around in the middle of here. So let's look at that on the 4-hour time frame, and we'll look at the entry that we took first. I think it was off the 2-hour. Yeah. So price pulled up here, and then it wicked right here, started dropping, wicked again, grabbed liquidity, it started pushing down. And once it started pushing down, that's when we determined that we're going to take the sell entry, and we simply were waiting for price to come back up right into this zone. As you can see, this is the candle body that I highlighted. So that's what we were looking for, is price to pull back into that area, and as soon as it did, we took the entry and we just let it ride. And down here, we actually closed 50% of the trade right here. Right, 1 second, right there. So 50% of the position is closed from that level. And now we're just simply looking to see price pull back up into this area so we can take yet another entry. And let me explain a little bit deeper why we are pulled back into this area. So what I see here is a very clear, I'm gonna shorten this for a minute. So we have a very clear resistance right here, and the first thing that comes to mind is it's probably just gonna pull back here. But because how we know the market is very manipulated, and you know that would just be too easy. It's too basic. Everyone can see that happening, and I feel like there's going to be a lot of entries being placed right at this level. It's probably going to reject this level a little bit and push down, and that might trick some people into selling. And if they were selling right here, where's their stop loss going to be? It's probably going to be somewhere between 30 and 50 pips above the entry, which is exactly where we want to enter, right? So we play along with the banks. We know how the banks think. We know how the banks enter, and they enter off everyone's stop loss, right? So that is why, that's part of the reason why we're looking to take an entry at 1.36 essentially. Another reason is the simple retest of this level right here. And as you can see, if we dive into the 10-minute, in my opinion right here, this is, see how price pushed down and then it kind of stalled. Even right here, it started getting a little choppy, pushed down a little bit, and then it pulled back right up into this area, and then it dropped heavily and has not came back since. So that tells me that this is the area where all the secondary sell orders came in to have that kind of second push down for the market. So at first, you know, we got the push from this key level down in here, and then price stalled a little bit, and then we got the second push from that key level, or sorry, from this area down into here, and you can see it's almost the exact same lengths as well, so that's not really coincidence. And I believe that if we look at the weekly time frame, it just makes perfect sense, in my opinion, that we see a wick pull up to this area, these highs, and then drop. So that is pretty much why I want to see it. Kind of, I'm trying to show you example. This is a good example right here. See this bearish candle? See how the momentum, like we're going to these lows, right? So I'm just going to draw this up real quick. So the target is these lows. Maybe you got to sell up here, maybe you got to sell up here. But this following week, you see what happens. Price pulls back up into this area, and then for the next 1 to 3 weeks, it completely drops into the target, which 300 pips or 400 pips from the top. Same sort of thing is what I'm expecting here. But because of that sell pressure, I don't think we're going to come climbing back up into the wick. I think there's a very good chance that we're just going to pull back into the highs, or sorry, the opens of this past week, and then we're going to drain from there. Like, sorry, let me get some water. Like I was showing you guys with this pattern here, how we got the 1, 2, 3, 4, then the pullback. Same thing, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and the pullback. Um, I'm just expecting something similar to happen here. Obviously, it's never going to be exactly the same, but yeah, that's pretty much it. Just looking to take this from 1.36 down towards 1.31. Probably close. Oh my gosh. 1 second. Probably close some just just below this low. Man, I got some in my throat. 1 second. Let me clear this out. My goodness. Okay, I think we're good. One more huge swig of water. Let me draw this up. So that would look like, it's definitely not going to happen on the first day. So we're going to mark it on day number 2. Right, so this is going to look like that. Huge risk to reward, 1 to 7.5. And this trade was like 1 to 10, 1 to 11, because it was like a 50 pip stop loss and it's a 600 pip take profit. So yeah, like 1 to 11 ish. This is 1 to 7. So huge risk to reward here, but these are swing trades, right? So this move from 1.36 down to 1.315 is probably going to take 2 weeks at least. So this coming week, we'll pull up, we'll get an entry, it should drop, and then the following week, it might snap down here, hopefully. So maybe 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks. We'll see what happens. And with that, let's just look at US CAD now because these are very similar because they're both against the CAD. So let's take a look at this. Let's take a look at the weekly. And if you look at the weekly, we have a massive pin bar, right? Huge pin bar. And that just goes to show the amount of sell pressure that is stepping in these markets. Just like the Euro CAD, it price dumped. We did not get an entry on the top of here. I was not looking at this pair during that time. I was only looking at Euro CAD. But going into this week, the opportunity is definitely there, and we're definitely going to be taking advantage of it. So let's bring your eyes to this pin bar right here, right? Huge pin bar, almost exactly the same. And the following week, what happens? Price pulls up, creates a little wick, and then dumps. How many pips does it dump? It dumps 240 pips. Now, I think we're going to see a larger dump than 240 pips. The target is going to be 1.26. That's 360 pips. If we look at some of these candles, we measure them. 240, 200, 220, 220, 200. Right, the point I'm trying to make is that most of these candles are around 200 to 250 pips. So there's going to be two targets with this trade, similar to Euro CAD, how we already entered, and now we're looking for a second entry. The first target for this is going to be these lows right here, and the full target is going to be right here, and from there we'll close the whole position and determine if price is going to continue down to these weekly lows, or is it going to just grab buy liquidity from here and explode up into these area. But for now, let's take a look at the 4-hour time frame. And what I'm really looking for is just a smaller pullback that's above this 4-hour candle. I don't think it needs to pull back all the way up into these highs. If we look at price history, it doesn't need to pull back to the high of the candle it dumped from. For example, right here, this is the high of the candle right there. And it did not pull back. It came kind of close, but it didn't pull back to the high. Right, this is the high of the candle. So I don't think it needs to pull back all the way. Another good example is like right here even. Right, this is the top. Obviously it's not in one candle, but this is the top of where it initially dumped from. Honestly, this would be the top, but this is the top, right? Pulls back, around halfway, continues down again. I could show many examples right here. It doesn't even pull back, right? It just drops, goes sideways for a little bit, continues down. But this week I do think we are going to get that pullback. I think we're going to get that pullback above the 2-hour candle. Or sorry, the 4-hour candle, I guess, or the 2-hour candle. You can see the wick right there. And simply we're just looking to sell from around that 1.297 area. So if I mark that up, this is what the entry will look like. We'll do 1.2975 because that's a nice clean number here. This week, unless price really just wants to dump, it's probably not gonna just drop 300 pips just based off of how this pair moves. This is probably gonna take 2 weeks, but we'll put it down to the full target anyway. So that's a stop loss is right on the top where it dumped from, because we're already assuming that it's not going to go up that high, obviously. So that's where we're going to put a stop loss, because if we're analyzing it to not go that high, then obviously if it does go that high, our analysis is wrong. So that's where we're going to put where the stop loss at. We'll just do 50 pips. So that's another 1 to 7.5 risk to reward. Huge risk to reward. Even at the first target, that's 1 to 5 risk to reward. And you know, it's very possible that we week 1 is something like this, and then we pull back into like this level right here. So let me draw this out. Right, that's a highly likely situation right here. So that's kind of what I have in mind for US CAD, which is, again, it's along the lines of Euro CAD too. So they're both have the CAD in there, and we're both looking to short it. So yeah, this is what I have going forward for the US CAD this week, is placing an entry right at 1.2975. And with the CAD pairs out the way, let's look at the pound pairs. So let's just go down the list now. We'll start at the weekly time frame. And obviously you can already see what I'm looking at. So let me just delete that, and we'll get into why I'm looking at that. We have this low of this week right here that was tapped out, and the week ended with massive rejection. I have been saying buy pound yen for like a couple weeks now, pretty much since it tapped out this low. So like 2 weeks I've been trying to buy this thing, and that is based off of the fact that the yen came out with a statement saying they're not changing any of their rates for their banks and their interest rates, which ultimately will lead to the yen continuing to move down. So what I believe happened here was we just got a massive pullback, kind of from an institutional level, not really caring about the fundamentals, because the fundamentals said that yen would continue down, and for a little bit of time being it didn't. But obviously now we're seeing massive rejection, and I believe that we're going to see that bull pressure finally kick in, because if we zoom out, we got a beautiful push up, right? Pull back into this structure here and push up into 1.75. That's actually my swing high target, is 1.75. So let's go to the daily time frame, and I'll show you why this blue line is here. So unfortunately, we actually did take a sell literally. Let me just mark it up. We took a sell at 136.65, and the target was 160.8, which is 280 pips. It was a solid trade. Unfortunately, I did not, because of the yen coming out with that statement, I was really keen on buying, especially right here, how we got the 1, 2, 3, 4 wicks to the bottom. This is where we were buying at right here, and then it absolutely drained for 2 days, and then the third day it spiked right back up. And it's interesting because when price was up in this high area, I had this exact level marked. I actually had it marked as a zone. I had this candle right here. I said I want to see 156 hit, and it got hit, and now I'm looking to take this buy up into all-time, or not all-time, but new highs, new recent highs. If you look back at the weekly, just real quick, look how high it was at one point, right? So people look at where it is now and think, oh my gosh, it's so high. It's really not. It's actually really low. It's really low. And if you look at some of these bull runs here, this is a beautiful example. Oh my goodness. This is exactly what's going to be happening right now, okay? Let me just show you this. And I did not look at this prior to this video. So, look, took this high out, or sorry, took this low out, closed with a massive wick. Then the following week, a little bit of a wick downwards, and then we pushed up into these highs, pulled back again down into these lows, and then we took off, right? So with that, there's pretty much no difference to what's going on right now. Uh, Let me put this back where it was. So 2 hour time frame. See this bull run right here? Let's zoom in a little bit. We're going to go to the 4 hour. Sorry for all the movement. Okay. This is the bull run I'm talking about that I just showed you. Which we actually bought. We had a buy right here. So I actually marked the very bottom of this candle and we placed the buy literally right at 151.1. I remember placing the buy limit and the target was these highs. So it got absolutely wrecked and then it just kept going. I I didn't envision it making these huge highs. That's why we didn't swing it. But that's okay. Anyway, what I want to get at is right here. See this bottom? See how it drained and then it pushed up a little bit and then it just dumped a little bit, right? It dumped right into this area, right? It didn't come back down to these lows. It didn't spike that low out, right? It just pulled back right into where it didn't retest and then it completely exploded. It did not stop. Okay, so I'm kind of expecting something very, very, very similar to happen here, right? So going to the 2 hour, I want to make this a zone. That would make me feel better. I'm really expecting a smaller pullback into 157.4, like pretty much just mid 157s, mid lower 157s, and from there I want to see it explode. So see how zoomed in this is? You would think, oh, what if it's going to pull back to these lows? It's going to come all the way down here, right? You would think that. That's what I thought at first, but I mean, this price action is so similar, right? We have the bottom, we have the wicks created right here, we have it pushed up. So if I replay this, beautiful replay tool, you would think, oh, now well, it's probably going to come back and take the orders here, or it's going to fill the gap between these wicks, right there. But it really doesn't need to do that because that's what all of this was. This was accumulation of orders right here, and then it took off from there. And it's just going to pull back to the last area that it took off from, which was right here. And refresh. Very, very similar, right? Very similar. So that's why I'm expecting just a small pullback, like literally 100 pips pullback. I think this one was 80 pips, if I remember correctly. Did I measure that? It was 100 pips. Okay. It was 100 pips. So that's like exactly what's going on here, right? Like 100 pips. You can see how it's not breaking this. So I'm honestly interested in taking a little scalp here soon. I had, what was it? 30-minute time frame. I had right this candle. I had this level marked. I deleted it to short from. So tonight, like soon, probably within the next, I'm not even going to say that, but just tonight at some point, I'm going to look to short this from here just for a little scalp. And then I'm going to also have a buy order right at 157.5 with a stop loss down in these lows. Very similar to like US CAD, right? I'm not expecting it to pull back to these lows, so that's where the stop loss can be. Let me change this red. Stop loss. Back to the pound yen. So even if this, so if I mark up the buy, we'll say 157.45. That's a 55 pip stop loss, and the swing target is higher than these highs. So I mean, it honestly it doesn't even matter if the stop loss was like 80 pips because the risk to reward ratio is just ginormous. Swinging it, right? Because I mean, look how zoomed out I am here, placing a buy right here with the target higher than here, it seems crazy. I mean, that's like a lot of pips, but it's, it's just the market. It's just how it moves. Is what it does, and that's what we do is we capture that. So we're looking to take that entry right here, and we're gonna swing that for probably like a month, and we're gonna capture like 2,000 pips, and it's gonna be really cool. And on the flip side of that, we have the pound Aussie. So this one, we're going to the week. We're going to refresh this. We're going to zoom in and we'll get all settled in here. So obviously you can see what I have marked already. Short. What happened was we actually bought down here and then it dropped and then it pulled back up and then it rejected and now we're looking to take that sell. So the whole time I was actually looking to sell from up here, but when price was up here, my mind was on Bitcoin and gold, I believe. So I didn't even look at the chart. I took the buys and then I just forgot about it. Just set and forget and hit my take profit, and then that was it. I didn't look at it, but now I am because the move I'm really expecting is all the way down here, and obviously that has not happened yet. So we're still in the game for it. I have this level marked right here. As you can see, very, very respected and clean level on the daily time frame. And we zoom in the 4-hour. So this isn't as pretty. Um, it's, like I said, going into opening this chart, I'm not as excited and I'm trying to think of a good word for it. I'm more focused on the other pairs, right? The EuroCAD short, the secondary entry, the US CAD short, the pound yen buy. Um, those are my primary objective, is completing those, extremely precise. And that's simply because of this structure right here. It's just not like, it's not pretty like the other ones, EuroCAD, pound yen, US CAD, Bitcoin. We'll get into gold in a minute. That all has beautiful structure, and this isn't that beautiful for shorts. The higher time frame says it all. I mean, the lower time frame just doesn't look that good, but the higher time frame just screams, I'm going to drop. I'm going to drop. So that's why I kind of have my eye on this. It would have been nice to get a entry up in here because better stop loss placement. Because if we measure this, just up into these highs is already 50 pips. And yes, the target is 600. We still want a really good risk to reward. I don't want to, like, we're not going to 1 to 3 this, The stop loss has to be reasonable. And what I'm basically just waiting to see is I want to see price try and break this and not be able to. So I'm not setting a sell limit on this one. I will set sell limits on US CAD and EuroCAD, and I'll probably set a buy. I'm going to set a buy limit on pound yen, but pound Aussie is one that I'm actually just going to watch, and I want to make sure it can't break above that, because if it does pull up here and it wicks and rejects, then I don't have a doubt in my mind that it's going to drop. But if it kind of breaks above it and kind of chills above here, then I would rather put my risk on a higher probable setup. And the reason why I would say it's not as probable, this setup, is because of the structure that's going on right here. There is a chance that this continues to move up. So that's why I'm saying I'm waiting for it to prove to itself that it cannot break this level. And after that, then I'll place the entry manually. I won't use a sell limit. And let me just take a look at this right now, because if you take a look down here, this is pretty much the movement I'm trying to replicate. And as you can see, this was the open candle of the day, right here. And look how clean that is. So clean. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 4-hour candles. Then it drops. It cannot break that level. And it's kind of starting to do that right here, right? So I would really like to place an entry at 158.6. go to the 10-minute time frame. We already pushed above that high though. It's so tempting to just place an entry right now, but the market just opened, so I'm not going to. Don't worry, I'm not actually going to do that. Uh, yeah, so I'm going to give it a couple hours, and I'm going to mark this high right there. And if this thing tries to break, if this cannot push above here in the next few hours, I'm just going to take the sell, just right around 8.5. And yeah, so we'll come back to that in a couple hours. And lastly, we have gold, our good friend gold. We had some nasty trades on gold this past week. We shorted, let me just mark it out. We shorted right here with a tight stop loss, and we repeated that short again right here. The stop loss was big on this one. It was like 60 pips on this one. The target was 812, and it just spiked it perfectly. And then we were looking to take a third short from the retest of just this area right here. I didn't even want it to pull all the way up. I wanted to hit like 1830. I think this was the sell limit I had was at 1831. But as you can see, it respected this high very, very well and dumped from there. But yeah, we had beautiful, beautiful movements on gold this week, and I think that's going to continue. So let me zoom out, and we'll go over the long-term outlook, and then we will dive into the scalps, because gold, I mean, we will be in and out in hours sometimes. So plain and simple, I'm looking to take this up to 2,100 still. Okay, that bias has not changed, and that's because of the recession that we're all headed into. I think that is going to continue, and yeah, let's dive into that with that in the back of our heads. So previously, we actually bought. So we had 1, 2, 3, and we bought right here at my entry. I believe was 1781, and the target was up here because I thought we were going to sell off, but then the war happened and we absolutely exploded. It was insane. I mean, you could feel the pressure of this thing just ripping upwards. Every hour on the clock, this thing was moving upwards. It's quite a sight to see, really. And we've had pretty much the opposite down here. A little bit of stumble right here. This is the first area that we did look to take buys. That didn't work, and then we switched to sells, and then we got a couple good sells in, which were beautiful. And what I'm looking for is simply this weekly low to be taken out, and that be next week's bottom. And from there, buy and swing this thing up like 3,000 pips. So I do not think we have to take this level out, because that would be my first, you know, um, that was like the first thing my mind went to, is taking that level out, but it really doesn't have to, because if we look right here, look where this low went. So it could have taken this level out. That would have made sense, right? Because this was that next, the final low, right? It would make sense for it to take that low out, and it didn't. And it didn't even take this low out, right? It just pulled back into the area. So that's kind of what I'm expecting. I'm expecting it to take this low out right here, but that's it. Or even just to pull down in between this level right here. So I pretty much have this. I don't need it that large. What am I doing? Right there. Hold on, that's got to line up perfectly. I'll line it up in a smaller time frame. I'm essentially, I just want to see this next week's wick come lower than the previous week. And we'll go to the daily time frame, and we're going to delete this, because if this next week is going to come lower than there, which I think it will based off of the sell pressure that we've seen, If that's the case, then obviously it's got to push down there. And if it's going to do that, I mean, that's 160 pips from where it is right now, but we know how the daily candles work and how they have wicks on both sides. If today's Monday's daily candle has a wick on the top, and let's say it pushes up here, and then we ultimately push down here within the next day or two, that's 240 pips. I mean, why would we not trade that? So let's dive into that for a minute, and we'll just go to the 4 hour. What I would really like to see is the gap filled between this wick's high and this wick's low. So you see that gap that I just filled there, and then obviously we're just going to extend that this way. I just want to see price test this area. And if we go to the 2 hour or 30-minute time frame, I'm going to adjust this. So this candle right here, pretty much these two, this is where I want to see price pull into, so I'm going to adjust that. So you can see the top of this zone is at the top of these wicks, and that actually lined up very perfectly with the bottom of that, because this area is where a lot of the sell orders came in. As you can see, price dumped, it stalled, and then it completely drained from there. So that's where I think a lot of the sell orders are going to come in, and that would just make sense. Switching back to the daily time frame, that would make sense because that means this next candle, like the wick wouldn't come way up here. That just doesn't make sense to me. It would make sense to me to just see a smaller wick to the upside and then a push down here. So that's what I'm keeping in mind with gold is just a smaller push down. If it breaks this, then I'm going to reevaluate, and we could see the gap between this high and right here, just how I was predicting the other day, but between this high right there. But I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think it's going to have to. I don't think it needs to push up that high. It's been pushing down on a downtrend, so it would just make sense for it to pull up in here, push down again one more time, and that would give us a beautiful 1, 2, 3, and then we can buy and go from there. And I want to show you something real quick. Let me delete this. Okay, zoom out, zoom out, zoom out, zoom out. Where? Okay, yeah. All right, you guys ready for this? You see this price action? Huge wick down. This is where people think the bottom is. It pulls up. Then it drops, maybe pulls up again. But ultimately, look what happens. So we're going to mark this low, okay? This is the low. This is where people think the bottom are. Look, the low gets stopped out. That's exactly what I want to see happen with the current price action. I want to see it ultimately push down and get stopped out down here. And then we see a huge push up. We break all of this structure. Oops. We break all this structure right here. And then what happens? It pulls back to around this daily level, actually very slightly under it. You can place a buy right here, and then it continues upwards. Right. Well, in reality, that was downwards. So what I did is I pressed Alt I, and it inverts the chart. That's essentially what I want to see here. So, hold on, one more point to make. One more point to make. That was right here. And the reason why, as you just saw in the smaller time frame, in the current price action, there's already 2 wicks. So you think, well, what if that first one was, what people thought was the bottom, and then you get what I'm trying to say. The reason why I think that the second wick is actually the bottom, what people think is the bottom, is because that's the weekly low. And look right here. Right? It spiked above that. Or if I flip it right here, it spiked below that. Right? That's why maybe I go to the daily, we can see it. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna flip it now. See this? Nice wick, right? Pulls back down, makes that new weekly wick that's lower than this one, right? We have this weekly low, and now we have this new weekly low that's lower than that one, and then we buy, right? That is what I'm expecting here. So, slight pullback, we catch the sell, and this sell might be 2 or 3 days, and then on Friday it explodes, and then the following week we get that pullback, right, to this level right here. I'm actually going to get rid of that zone. So that's what's going on with gold. Um, yeah, just selling from here down to below this at some point, probably like 1975-ish. Taking a buy at 1970. I'm sorry, 1795. I had that backwards. Taking a buy, waiting for the pullback, taking a second entry, and then we're going to be holding that for like 3 weeks and making a couple thousand pips. The usual is pretty standard here at Team Let's Eat. Most of our trades are a lot of pips. We hold them for a while. Everything's proper here. We don't do the scalping as much. Sometimes we do, like with the GJ sell tonight. And I'm not going to consider this one a sell because it's probably going to take a couple days. But GJ, this is probably going to be more of a scalp. That's all I got for this week. So I hope you all enjoyed that, learned something, maybe took a note of something. I will be placing sell limits right here. I'll be placing a sell limit right there. I'll be placing a sell order. I'll do that manually soon, and then I'll place a buy limit right here. And I'll probably watch gold and do that manually. So let's have a good week.